Good day, everyone. I am your foremost teacher, master teacher, Abiola, the premium tutor. Okay, let's go to the final stage of our training, which has to do with assessing struggling learners. I like to call this fondly the CRA. And if you're familiar with the CRA, it is the Central Intelligence Agency. You know, everything you have learned is not, it's not deep enough. You cannot implement enough, okay, until you are able to do this. Now, I would like to break it into, three. Now, first, you've got the knowledge, that is information. You've got the understanding, I believe vividly, that is comprehension. Now, it's time to get wisdom, how you can apply it. So that's why I call it the Central Intelligence Agency. As we know, the CIA gathers, processes, and analyzes relevant information. You can also call it the OSS. The OSS, that's formerly what the CIA used to be called as the Office of Strategic Services. You can call it the Office of Strategic Services if you have people working under you or working with you. I believe in people working together, not under. So that can work with you to gather all this information. Okay, let's go ahead as CIA agents. All right. Now, the first thing you have to do when assessing a struggling learner, this is what you call a pre-assessment, yes, is to go on what you call evaluation. And in evaluation, what do? You ask everyone involved in the child's life certain questions. Who are those that are involved in the child's life? Let's imagine, okay, maybe primary 4 child, okay? For instance, it could be younger, the person in question, the learner in question could be younger or older, okay? You have to ask the parents, the classroom teacher, the assistant teachers, if there are, the previous class teachers, the lesson teacher. Now you're going to ask the lesson teacher if you're not the lesson teacher. If you are the class teacher, fine. You just have to ask everyone involved in the child's life. Then extracurricular activity teachers. If they are more than one, the child could be in ballet, could be playing, it could be chess, brownies, the rest of it, basketball, whatever the case may be. So you have to ask all these people. And importantly, sometimes you just have to ask. Recently, I just discovered that based on those people that we work together, I just have discovered that you could even ask the maid, like the nanny. You understand? Some questions, very relevant. I see that it works too, okay? Now, if a child has behavioral issues, I used to say that, I'm fond of saying that, behavioral issues deters learning. So if the child has behavioral issues, you should address that. So when you are setting questions, for instance, maybe you want to give questions online, maybe you are sending the link to those involved, to all the parties involved, your questions must, follow a particular path. So when you are asking not only academic questions like how is he doing in chess and all that, in sports, not that, you have to add, behavioral questions to deal with behavioral issues if there are any. So why are we doing this? Why are we putting out those people? Because there's a saying, biblical saying, that out of 2 or more witnesses, the truth is established. So you are trying to get your facts there. So those behavioral questions could be, is the child highly destructible? Does the child have anger issues? How does a child deal with fear? Then, how does the child respond when he or she doesn't have ease or a way? And you don't have the way, you can have this. How does the child respond? Then, child's attention span. Reaction when child sees his mother or a mother or any loved one, maybe dad, sibling, and the rest. Response to instructions and task given. When you give the child instructions, how does the child respond to it? And when the child is given task, how does the child respond to it? Okay? So these questions need to be also tied. Some questions need to be tied around the background. You understand? When you're getting this data, when you're getting this information, you have to get the background information. For instance, the age. And this background information, the age, you have to be specific. Okay, let's give for instance a child who is born in January, let's say 2010, and a child born December, or let's even say September 2010. You understand? We are in 2000 and, let's imagine we are in 2020, and this child was born 2010. Now, the child born in January 2010, and let's just imagine that we are in May or March 2010. The child born in January 2010 is already 10 years old in 2020. I hope I'm right. Yes. While that child born in September, the child is not yet 10 years old. So you have to be very accurate. You have to tell the child's age. Is it 10 years? You understand? 8 months, 5 weeks, and 5 days. Please make it accurate. Very important. You have to take the date of evaluation when each of these evaluation happened. You have to date of reports. Okay? That is very important. And when you're making these reports, please do not delay, because there's a saying that change is constant. Don't delay when sending the reports. Make your report. And why did I say change is constant? Because people change, things change. So if you have to delay 3 months, 2 months, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, some things might have changed within that period. So make sure all these things you are taking note of, and maybe some things you just have to take note of. Remember, you are getting information from various people. You've not done your own assessment. That's why we are calling this pre-assessment. Okay? So it's advisable you do an assessment and make proper reports within a week. Although some organizations like outside the country, they have automated reports, but I will advise for proper assessment, you have one-on-one relationship. Now, after you've got all this pre-assessment, there's what you call the major assessments. And that major assessment is when you, the assessor, you, the professional, you, the teacher that knows who is well trained, the trained teacher, comes in after you've collected all this data. So, you do your major assessment, because some assessments could be sentimental, most especially when it has to do with the parents. These days, sometimes parents will say, the school is this, the teacher is that, and that, and that. Meanwhile, the child is having, behavioral issues. It could be more behavioral than even a learning difficulty. You understand? So maybe the child needs a behavioral therapist. That is quite different. Then, sometimes parents don't have the way you would assess. Parents don't have that vital information. They are not knowledgeable. The parents can just say, oh, maybe the child can, today my child read, he can read now, and all those kind of things. So it's just more than that. Okay? So don't, it should be noted that you don't give same assessment to assessment should differ. So if you are, maybe you have a child now for Maria, so what you give Maria should quite, even though they are siblings, should be different from what you give Emmanuel. For instance, Maria and Emmanuel, let them have different assessments. It should not be okay. For instance, let's take this example for a child that can read but not spell correctly. After we are taking assessment for that child, after the reading part, we are telling the child to read, you are taking the major assessment, for instance, you time your reading per minute or per second. How fast can a child read? You understand? I'm not saying you should, hasten the child. Let the child read at his or her own pace. Do you understand? And please note that when you are assessing reading, what reading, how the child reads, there should also be noted. Is he or she taking note of punctuation marks? You understand? Can the child identify punctuation marks, or is just reading blandly and without anyone comprehending it? Is the child reading appropriately? So you take note of that.